Abandoned son reunion. It was a stormy night in the autumn of 2005 when 16-year-old Emily Reynolds stumbled into the emergency entrance of the Willow Creek County Hospital. Rainwater dripped from her tangled hair and soaked sweatshirt as she doubled over in pain, one hand on her swollen belly. The night nurse at reception rushed to her aid, guiding her into a wheelchair while Emily gasped through clenched teeth, "It's coming. It's happening now." The hospital staff moved quickly, but their eyes lingered on her youthful face. So young, so alone. She had no one by her side, no parents, no partner, no friends to hold her hand. Her parents had thrown her out the moment they learned she was pregnant, accusing her of shaming the family. The father of her child, a 19-year-old drifter named Kyle, had disappeared 2 months earlier with promises that had meant nothing. Emily had been couch surfing and working odd jobs at a diner, barely getting by. Every night she'd talk to the baby growing inside her belly, promising love, hoping for a miracle. At 12:17 a.m., Emily gave birth to a healthy baby boy. His first cry pierced the sterile air, and the nurse gently placed him on her chest. He was warm, soft, and trembling. She stared into his scrunched face, overwhelmed by a love that crashed into her like a wave. For a moment, nothing else existed, just her and him, mother and son, connected by a bond older than time. She named him Noah, but reality didn't wait long to reclaim her. The social worker arrived at dawn. Her tone was calm but clinical, and her questions cut deep. Do you have stable housing? Any family support? A long-term plan for employment or education? Each answer was a dead end. Emily sobbed as she cradled Noah, whispering, "I love you. I want you, but I don't know how to keep you safe." The hospital allowed her one more night. In that small room, she held her baby close, memorizing every tiny feature, his button nose, the way his fingers curled around hers, the way he nuzzled toward her heartbeat. She hummed lullabies she remembered from childhood and imagined a world where she could keep him. But morning came, and with it the cold machinery of bureaucracy. The adoption coordinator entered with forms. Emily didn't want to sign. She begged for more time, for a miracle. But in the end, with tears blurring her vision and guilt crushing her lungs, she scrawled her name across the release papers. And then she was gone. Out into the drizzle, onto a bus, into the silence of a world that had no place for her. The next few years were a blur of survival. Emily worked under-the-table jobs, stayed in shelters, and once even slept in the staff closet of a grocery store. But she kept moving. She carried a photo of a baby wrapped in hospital blankets, snuck by a nurse who'd taken pity on her, and hid it in the lining of her coat. Each birthday, she lit a candle and whispered into the dark, "I'm sorry. I hope you're happy. I hope someone's loving you." By her mid-20s, Emily had managed to enroll in night classes and earned her caregiver certification. She started working with children, then elderly patients. Her clients trusted her, even grew to love her. But inside, she remained hollow. She never married. She never had another child. Sometimes, she would pass parks and watch young boys chase soccer balls, wondering if one of them might be Noah. She never dared ask. She told herself it was too late, that he had a better life now, that searching for him would only cause pain. And so, Emily built her life in fragments, always circling around the absence at its center. A mother without a child. A heart that beat in memory of a son she never truly got to know. In the spring of 2025, Emily Reynolds stood at the edge of a long, tree-lined driveway, suitcase in hand. Before her rose the kind of house most people only saw in glossy magazines, an ivy-covered estate with arched windows, wrought iron balconies, and gardens that seemed to stretch forever. Birds chirped, fountains trickled, and a soft breeze rustled through the trees. But the beauty of it only deepened the unease in her chest. She had been offered the job just 2 weeks earlier, an unusually generous offer from a prestigious agency in Manhattan. A live-in nanny and house manager role with a 6-figure salary, benefits, and a private guest house. The interview had been brief, the questions direct. The client, they said, had personally requested her after reviewing her profile and references. Strange, Emily thought. She had never worked for high-profile clients before. The front door opened. A man in a gray tailored suit stepped onto the porch. He was tall, athletic, early 30s. Sharp jawline, carefully tousled hair, and piercing eyes the color of winter storms. "Miss Reynolds?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Daniel Reeves. Welcome." His handshake was firm but fleeting. No unnecessary pleasantries. He turned and motioned for her to follow. Inside, the house was a world apart. Vaulted ceilings, sunlight pouring through stained glass, oil paintings of unfamiliar ancestors. Marble floors echoed beneath their steps as Daniel led her through the grand foyer into a cozy study filled with books and leather furniture. "This will be your space to use as needed," he said. "The boy, Alex, is at school during the day. You'll mostly be managing his routine, meals, and appointments. I work remotely but travel often." "Is Alex your son?" Emily asked. "No," Daniel said, pausing slightly. "He's my godson. My sister is undergoing treatment overseas. He'll be with me for the foreseeable future." Emily nodded, sensing a closed door behind his words. No further questions. That evening, she settled into her guest house, a charming stone cottage tucked between rose gardens and a small pond. It was the most peaceful place she had lived in years. She stared at the stars through the skylight above her bed, unsure whether to feel grateful or suspicious. Why her? Why this job? She would soon learn that nothing about this place was as simple as it seemed. Over the following weeks, Emily's role expanded from nanny to confidant. She cooked healthy meals, organized Alex's school projects, and kept the massive estate running like clockwork. The boy was sweet but quiet, prone to sudden sadness. Emily wondered what trauma lay behind his big brown eyes. Daniel remained distant but kind. He worked long hours from his home office, often on video calls, yet he noticed everything. How she folded the linens, how she instinctively adjusted the thermostat to keep Alex comfortable, how she hummed lullabies in the evening that made even the house seem to sigh. Then, one night, everything shifted. Emily was returning some books to the library when she noticed the door to Daniel's study was ajar. Inside, he was asleep in the armchair, a glass of wine in hand. Papers were strewn across the desk, and a single photo frame lay face down beside his laptop. She hesitated, then crossed the room. The photo had fallen during his nap. She picked it up carefully and turned it over. Her breath caught in her throat. It was a faded photograph of a newborn baby wrapped in a hospital-issued blue and pink blanket. The baby's tiny hand was curled against his cheek. Tucked just behind the photo was a torn edge of what looked like a birth certificate. Emily blinked rapidly. Her mind raced. Noah? No, it couldn't be. Hundreds of babies were born every day. But something about the photograph haunted her. The hospital blanket. The lighting. The corner of the certificate showed the name of a town, Willow Creek. The same hospital where she had given birth. She placed the photo back exactly as she found it and slipped out of the room. The days that followed were heavy with questions. Emily studied Daniel carefully. His gestures, his expressions, his tone of voice. There were fleeting moments when he seemed familiar. The curve of his brow, the way he clenched his jaw when deep in thought, the slight dimple in his left cheek when he smiled. But no, it wasn't possible. Still, the doubt gnawed at her. She began piecing together what little she knew. Daniel Reeves had no public family history. All his media profiles began with college, nothing before. She found no childhood photos, no old interviews, no family tree. It was like his life had started at age 18. And then came the dreams. Every night, Emily dreamed of the hospital room. The baby in her arms, the nurse taking him away, the sound of his cry echoing in the hallway. But in the dream, the baby's face morphed into Daniel's. He looked at her, not with anger, but confusion, as if he, too, were searching. One afternoon, while baking cookies with Alex, the boy blurted out, "You remind Uncle Daniel of someone." Emily froze mid-stir. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. He said you have the same eyes. Like someone he lost a long time ago." Emily's hand trembled as she placed the tray into the oven. Her heart felt too loud. That night, she took a walk through the garden, her coat pulled tight around her. The moon hung low, casting silver across the hedges. She stopped beneath the willow tree near the pond and whispered into the wind. "Is it possible? Could it be him?" The only answer was the rustle of leaves. The year passed like a dream, soft at the edges but heavy in the middle. Emily, now 37, moved through the mansion like a quiet presence, keeping things whole, warm, alive. She had become more than a nanny. She was the quiet rhythm that steadied the house. Alex thrived under her care. He had grown from a cautious, often silent boy into a more confident child who laughed freely and leaned into her hugs. He called her M, not Miss Emily, and often confided in her things he never told Daniel. And Daniel? He remained a puzzle wrapped in layers of silence. But something was shifting. Where once he stayed closed off, now he lingered in the kitchen while she cooked, watching her hands as they chopped vegetables. He asked questions, small ones, then deeper, where she was from, what she liked to read, whether she'd ever loved someone deeply. She spoke carefully, never mentioning Noah. The pain was too raw, even now. But then came a moment, a simple evening with candles flickering and soft jazz playing in the background, when she laughed at something Daniel said, and he stopped, just looking at her. "What?" she asked. "You laugh like someone I used to dream about," he said softly. She wanted to ask what he meant, but fear held her tongue. That night, she stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. That photo in his office. His hesitations. His careful questions. It couldn't be, could it? By late fall, Daniel had grown more restless. He spent long nights in his office, emerging with bloodshot eyes and half-finished thoughts. He traveled more often, taking meetings in cities across the country. When he returned, he was quieter, haunted, even. Emily noticed the change. Then, one morning, she found a crumpled letter on the floor beneath his desk. The envelope had once been sealed in red wax. Her name wasn't on it, but curiosity pushed her to read the first line. "To the one who gave me life and disappeared into the world, I think I've found you." She didn't read more. Guilt hit her like a wave. The pieces began to fall into place. The photo, the birth certificate, the silence. Daniel was searching. Not just anyone. He was searching for her. That afternoon, he returned home, and she watched him from across the garden as he stood beneath the willow tree. He looked up at the sky like he was trying to summon something long lost. Emily stepped forward, her hand halfway raised to call his name, but he turned away before she could. She didn't sleep that night. She took the old photo of Noah, the one hidden in the lining of her purse, and laid it on her pillow. The resemblance was undeniable. Daniel's eyes were his. The curve of his mouth. The way he clenched his hands when nervous. She wanted to tell him. But how? "I might be the woman who left you in a hospital as a baby," wasn't the kind of confession you just blurted out over breakfast. And what if she was wrong? A few weeks later, she received a phone call that shattered everything. "Hello, is this Emily Reynolds?" The voice was from a producer at a New York television network. "We're working on a special episode of Lost and Found, about family reunions," the woman said. "Someone contacted us looking for a woman named Emily who gave up a child in Willow Creek in 2005. We believe it might be you." Emily's knees buckled. She sank into a chair and pressed the phone tighter to her ear. "We understand this is sensitive. You're not obligated to appear. But the person looking for you, he's sincere. He spent years trying to find you. He wants to ask why?" Emily couldn't breathe. She managed to choke out, "Can I think about it?" "Of course. We'll give you time." She hung up and stared at the wall for a full hour. That evening, she made Daniel's favorite dinner, grilled salmon, lemon rice, roasted asparagus, and tried to act normal. He didn't mention anything unusual, though his eyes lingered on her longer than usual. Later that night, she took a walk alone to the edge of the estate. The moon was high, and her breath clouded in the cool air. "I don't know if you're him," she whispered. "But if you are, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me." Days passed, then a week. Emily tried to function normally, tucking Alex into bed, folding laundry, making grocery lists. But inside, she was collapsing. The past clawed at her. Every small sound made her flinch. The producer called again. "We're filming the segment next Thursday. The person is already confirmed. He asked that we don't tell you his name, just that he believes he's found his birth mother." Emily stood at a crossroads. If she declined, she might lose her last chance. If she went, she risked opening wounds that had never fully healed. She said yes. The morning of the show, Emily stood backstage in a crisp navy blue blouse, her hands trembling as makeup artists dabbed concealer beneath her eyes. Her palms were clammy. She felt like she was 16 again, walking out of that hospital with a heart full of sorrow. The host smiled gently, her tone soft. "We're about to go live. Just answer honestly. He wants to understand." The stage lights flared. Emily stepped onto the set. The studio lights were painfully bright. Emily blinked as she stepped onto the stage, the hush of the live audience washing over her like a tide. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears. Her knees wobbled slightly, and she took a seat in the chair prepared for her, hands folded tightly in her lap. Across from her, the host, a warm woman named Janelle with soft eyes and a practiced smile, leaned forward. "Thank you for being here, Emily. We know this isn't easy." Emily nodded. Her throat was too dry for words. Janelle turned to the camera. "Tonight, on Lost and Found, we bring you the story of a man who has spent most of his life wondering, why was he left behind? Who was the woman who gave him life? And now, after years of searching, he believes he may have found her." The screen behind them flickered to life. A pre-recorded video began to play. A man sat in a softly lit room. Only his silhouette was visible. "My name is Daniel. I was adopted at 6 months old after spending the first part of my life in foster care. I always knew I was adopted. My parents were kind. They gave me a good life. But there was always a shadow. This question I couldn't shake. Why didn't she keep me? Who was she? Did she think about me? Did she love me? Even just for a minute?" His voice cracked. "When I was 8, I found a photo tucked inside my adoption file. Just a baby, in a blanket. I kept it, studied it. It was the only connection I had to where I came from." He looked up, tears shining in his eyes. "I've looked for her since I turned 18. There were so many dead ends. But this year, I finally found something. A hospital record. A name. Emily Reynolds." The video ended. The lights dimmed. Janelle stood. "Emily, are you ready to meet the man who's been searching for you?" Emily could barely nod. Her breath hitched in her chest. The backstage curtain parted, and Daniel walked onto the stage. Emily froze. The room fell silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Daniel wore a dark blue shirt, sleeves rolled up, eyes glassy with emotion. He wasn't the businessman now, not the composed, guarded man she had come to know. He was raw, vulnerable, searching. His eyes met hers. And in that moment, it was like time collapsed. 20 years ago, she had kissed the forehead of a newborn baby and walked out into the rain, never expecting to see him again. Now, he stood before her, a man. Her son. "Daniel," she breathed, her voice barely audible. He nodded, blinking quickly. "I knew. The moment I saw you at the interview, something clicked. I didn't want to believe it at first. I told myself it was a coincidence. But then you said your name. Then you baked those cookies, my favorite, even though I never told you." Emily's hands flew to her mouth. "I started digging," he continued. "I found the hospital records. Your name matched. The date. Everything." Tears ran freely down her cheeks now. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I had no idea that it was you. My God." Daniel sat across from her, shoulders tense. "Why didn't you try to find me?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Emily closed her eyes. "Because I thought I didn't deserve to. I was 16. I had nothing. No home. No help. My parents kicked me out. I wanted to keep you. I swear I did. But I was afraid you'd grow up hungry, cold, unsafe." "You could have looked later," Daniel said. "When things got better." She shook her head. "By then I was too ashamed. I told myself you were happy, that maybe you had a better life without me. I didn't want to open a wound if you'd healed." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But I never healed. I spent nights staring at that photo. I wondered if you were dead, if I was unwanted, if there was something wrong with me." Emily sobbed openly now. "There is nothing wrong with you. You were perfect. You still are. I never stopped thinking about you. I dreamed of you every single birthday. I whispered your name to the stars." Daniel didn't speak for a long moment. His hands were shaking. "I hated you," he finally said, voice hoarse. "For a long time. But I also hoped that there was a reason, that it wasn't because you didn't love me." "I loved you," Emily whispered. "From the first moment I saw you. I loved you enough to let you go, even though it broke me." Silence again. Then Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny, folded square of paper. He handed it to her. It was the photo, the one the nurse had taken, the same one she used to keep hidden in her purse lining, now faded, creased, but still intact. "I kept it," he said, "all these years." She touched the image gently, her fingers trembling. "I still see that baby in you," she said. "Even now." The audience sniffled. The cameras panned slowly, capturing the rawness of the moment. Janelle stepped in gently. "We'll give you two some time alone. Thank you both for your honesty, your courage, and your hearts. The lights dimmed again. The segment ended. But Emily and Daniel sat in their chairs, eyes locked across 20 years of silence, hurt, and longing, finally, at last, beginning to see each other fully. After the cameras stopped rolling, the studio emptied quickly. Technicians packed up cords. Audience members filed out, dabbing their eyes. But Emily and Daniel remained seated, as if neither dared move. Two lives that had crashed into each other again after 20 years apart. A soft knock broke the quiet. A producer gently asked if they wanted a private space. They nodded. The small green room was quiet, furnished with soft couches and bottled water. Emily sat down slowly. Daniel stood for a while, hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. Finally, he broke the silence. I didn't come on that show for drama. I didn't want it to be public. I know, she said. Neither did I. But maybe it had to be. Maybe the world had to witness that we were real. Daniel glanced at her. You look like me. She smiled through tears. You look like the baby I couldn't forget. He sat down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. You know, for a long time I imagined you were heartless. Cruel. Just walked away and never looked back. But that's not what I saw today. No, Emily whispered. It never was. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, do you know what hurt the most? That I waited. I kept waiting for a letter or a message. Something. Anything. I was afraid, she said. Afraid you'd tell me to stay away. That you'd already had a good life and wouldn't want the woman who gave you away coming back. He nodded slowly. I did have a good life. Eventually. But there was always a hole. She looked down, wringing her hands. I never forgave myself. I don't expect you to forgive me, Daniel. But if I could go back and do things differently. You were 16, he said, cutting her off. You were alone. You were thrown out by your parents. And this world, it's cruel to girls like you. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected kindness. Not yet. I did some digging after the show's producers found you, Daniel continued. I hired someone to look into the past. The records. The names of the doctors. The social worker who handled my case. Her eyes widened. You found her? He nodded. Ms. Carter. She retired. Lives in Vermont now. I called her last week. And Emily whispered. She cried, he said. She said you were one of the girls that stuck with her forever. She said she tried everything to find you another option, to find someone to help you, but your parents refused. Said you were a disgrace. They signed papers denying custody the same day you gave birth. Emily's hands covered her mouth. Tears poured freely now. It wasn't your choice alone, Daniel said. They took it from you. She sobbed. I blamed myself for everything. I thought I was weak. You were strong, Daniel said. You gave me life. You did what you thought would protect me. I can't hate you for that. Silence fell again, but this time, it was not a wall. It was a space being cleared between them for something new. In the weeks that followed, they met often. Slowly, cautiously, as strangers learning how to be something more. At first, their conversations were hesitant, polite, formal. Emily told him about her years of working in kitchens and nursing homes. About the nights she baked cupcakes for children who weren't hers, just to feel a little closer to him. Daniel shared photos from his childhood, some with his adoptive parents, some from foster homes where he never unpacked his bag. They laughed. They cried. They asked hard questions. And they began to forgive. One day, Daniel drove Emily back to Willow Creek. She hadn't been there in 20 years. The town hadn't changed much. The diner still stood with its faded awning. The hospital still loomed on the hill, indifferent and clean. They visited the maternity ward. A nurse, younger than Emily had been when she gave birth, guided them to the old nursery. Through the glass, Emily stared at the same spot where she had once held Noah. Her legs gave way. Daniel caught her. I never got to say goodbye, she whispered. You don't have to anymore, he said. We're here. We're together. They later stopped at a nearby park. Daniel pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small velvet box. Emily blinked, confused. What's that? He opened it to reveal a silver bracelet, engraved with a single word. Found, she gasped, her hands trembling as she clasped it around her wrist. I wanted you to know, he said, that you don't have to carry the shame anymore. We're not lost. Not anymore. That Christmas, Emily joined Daniel and Alex in the mansion for the holidays. They baked cookies, watched snow fall, and decorated a massive pine tree in the front hall. Emily hung a small ornament shaped like a cradle near the top. Daniel smiled. Next year, you'll hang one shaped like a heart. She laughed through happy tears. And the next year, she did. Months later, they co-founded a nonprofit together, New Light, a shelter and resource center for young mothers who'd been abandoned like Emily once was. They provided housing, legal help, therapy, and most importantly, support. Emily became a mentor to dozens of girls, telling her story not with shame, but with courage. Daniel used his wealth and platform to raise awareness about adoption, family trauma, and the long road to healing. Together, they rebuilt something that had once been broken. Sometimes, the deepest love begins not in perfection, but in pain. And sometimes, the family you lost comes back, not as a stranger, but as a miracle. Emily and Daniel's story didn't erase the years they had missed. But in the space between sorrow and forgiveness, they created something new, honest, raw, and real. They chose each other. And in that choice, they found home. Dove end of story. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering with love instead of pain.